They say some spirits never leave the place they died. But what happens when a spirit never felt peace? Not even in life. In a quiet town in Oregon, there's an old elementary school that's been closed for years. Most people pass it without a second glance. But those who went there remember one classroom, room 1-B, because that's where she died. Her name was Lily Hart, and this is her story. Lily was 11 years old. She was shy, soft-spoken, and most kids thought she was weird. She always sat alone at lunch, and her nose was always stuck in a book. What the other kids didn't know was that she had a vivid imagination. She would draw pictures of angels and butterflies, and her notebooks were filled with fantastical creatures and far-off lands. But her classmates didn't see a quiet girl with a wild imagination. They saw a target. Every day, they made her life miserable. They made fun of her glasses. They ripped her sketchbooks and called her a nerd. They pushed her down the hallway and whispered cruel things behind her back. And one day, a boy named Thomas locked her in the janitor's closet during recess just to hear her cry. She spent 45 minutes trapped in the dark until the bell rang and the coast was clear. The teachers knew what the kids were doing, but they never stepped in to help. So eventually Lily stopped speaking altogether. She didn't talk at school or at home. Her parents said she stared at walls and whispered to herself, but they couldn't tell if she was having imaginary conversations or if she was actually speaking. One day her mom packed her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, but Lily wouldn't eat it. When her mom asked why, she shook her head and went back to staring at the wall. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. The next morning, Lily didn't get on the bus to school. When her parents got home from work that evening, she wasn't there. They searched everywhere, but she was nowhere to be found. The next morning, they found her in room 1-B. The room was empty, except for Lily. She was face down at her desk, and there wasn't a single mark on her. There was no blood, no bruises, and no cuts. The only thing out of place was a drawing she had done. It was taped to the back wall, and it looked like the other kids. At first glance, it appeared to be a picture of her classmates, but the more you looked, the more disturbed you became, because it looked like all of them had been brutally murdered. Their eyes had been gouged out, their mouths torn wide, and their insides spilled onto the floor. But the worst part was that the victims seemed to be in pain. The drawings weren't finished. They were crude and sloppy, like the artist was in a rush. But what scared Lily's parents the most was the expression on each victim's face. It was frozen in terror. It was exactly the same as the look on Lily's face. When paramedics arrived, they said Lily had died of a heart attack. The school agreed and sent the drawing to her parents with a letter of condolences. The school counselor said it must have been a medical condition. And even though the drawing was disturbing, it probably wasn't anything personal. But Lily's parents never believed it. They were convinced something sinister had happened to their daughter, and they refused to let the case go. They hired a private investigator who dug up every detail about what happened that year, but nobody had seen anything. Nobody knew anything. All the school staff members denied seeing or hearing anything out of the ordinary, and the kids either said they weren't in room 12B that day, or they couldn't remember. The case remained unsolved for 2 years. Then one day, the school burned down. The fire marshal said an electrical wire was to blame, but people in town disagreed. They said Lily's spirit was haunting the school, and that's why it burned down. That was almost 50 years ago, and the property still hasn't been redeveloped. It's abandoned and off limits, but urban explorers have broken in several times. Most of them say the building is normal, but some claim there are lingering spirits within its walls. One girl entered room 1-B, and while she was exploring, she said she heard a small voice behind her. It sounded like a little girl crying. Another explorer was sitting at Lily's desk, and he said he felt fingers brush his neck. But when he turned around, there was no one behind him. Some say the room is always colder than the rest of the school. Late at night, you can hear scratching coming from inside. It sounds like someone is trying to claw their way out of the classroom. People also report seeing shadows moving in the windows at night. They look like the figures of children, but when you get closer, you see that they're not actually there. Some believe that if you take anything from room 1-B, you bring bad luck upon yourself. But one man scoffed at the legends. He didn't believe in ghosts, so he took Lily's drawing to prove everyone was wrong, and bragged that he would make thousands of dollars selling the piece at an art show. But the next day, he hung himself in his sleep. The police ruled it a suicide, but they couldn't explain why a perfectly healthy man would end his life. A few months later, another man entered room 12B. He brought a camera with him, and he planned to live stream the footage online. But after he entered the room, he collapsed and started mumbling. He talked about shadows and whispers, and then he passed out. When emergency services arrived, they found the man kneeling next to Lily's desk. He was in a fetal position, and he was crying uncontrollably. He told the paramedics that Lily showed him everything. But maybe the scariest part of this story is that 3 of Lily's old classmates died in their sleep. They were all adults with families and jobs, but each one died the same way. The first was Thomas. He was the boy who locked Lily in the janitor's closet, and he died on Christmas Eve. The second was Michael, the boy who made fun of Lily's glasses. He died 2 months later on Easter Sunday. And finally, David, the boy who led the other kids in taunting Lily, he died on July, a day before his birthday. What was strange is that each one of them had a sketch next to their bed when the police investigated. Each sketch was drawn in the exact same style as the picture Lily drew of her classmates, and each showed the victim with something missing. Thomas had his eyes gouged out. Michael's mouth was torn open. David's heart was ripped from his chest. The police searched the house for signs of forced entry, but they couldn't find any. The doors and windows were locked from the inside, and none of them were damaged. The blinds were also closed, so nobody could have slipped in and out without being seen. But how? Everyone wondered if Lily was responsible, but the police quickly dismissed it. They said she was just a figment of people's imaginations, a figment of survivors' guilt. They said people were grasping at straws to explain the deaths, but we don't think so. We think there's a killer on the loose, a copycat, who used Lily as a victim and then continued his sick rampage. So if you're ever in the area and you want to pay your respects to Lily, just stay away from room 12B. Don't go inside, and don't read what's written on the wall. Some people say the letters spell out a message. They say it says, "Leave me alone. I'm watching you." And if you do go inside, don't take anything, especially if it looks like a drawing. If you take it, you might be signing your own death warrant. And if you see a little girl standing in the corner, don't try to talk to her. Just get as far away as possible because Lily doesn't scream, doesn't chase, she waits. She appears in reflections in windows and dreams. She's always wearing the same uniform, and she always has her sketchbook. But she doesn't draw anymore. Now she just watches. If you hear her voice, then run, because she's coming for you. And if you feel the cold breath on your neck, then turn around slowly, because if you look directly at her, she will finish the drawing. She'll add your name, and she'll take your soul. And when you're in her drawing, you're trapped forever. Thanks for watching. The Vengeful Spirit of Room 309 genre, supernatural horror target. Voiceover for YouTube. Theme. A woman murdered by 3 men returns as a vengeful ghost haunting an abandoned building. Have you ever walked past an old abandoned building and felt an unexplainable chill crawl down your spine, as if someone or something was watching you from a broken window? They say every building has a story. Some are forgotten, refuse to be buried. This is the true story of a woman whose soul was trapped in a place so dark, so vile, that even time couldn't silence her screams. Tonight, you're going to hear what really happened in room 309, why no one dares step foot there again. Her name was Eliza Moore. She was a 24-year-old waitress living in a small town outside of Pittsburgh. Kind-hearted, quiet, beautiful. But inside her apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes, she lived alone, trying to escape a past she rarely spoke of. On the night of November 13th, 2012, Eliza vanished. No one saw her leave. Her phone was left charging on her bed. Her cat hadn't been fed. Her shift at the diner never showed. A missing persons report was filed the next morning, but no clues were ever found. The case went cold. 5 years later, when an urban explorer entered a forgotten building on the outskirts of town, he uploaded a video, shaky camera footage, peeling wallpaper, rusty stairwells. He explored rooms filled with trash, remnants of lives lived and lost. Then room 39. In a flash of lightning, the camera caught something in the doorway. A pale figure standing still, watching. The video was removed 24 hours later, but that wasn't the end. The building had once been a motel in the 1980s. Known as the Red Pine Lodge, it was shut down after multiple complaints of violence, drug deals, and mysterious deaths. Few remembered it, except for those who dared to explore its decaying corridors. But local police never told the public what they found there in 2013, a shallow grave beneath room 309. Eliza Moore's remains were discovered in the floorboards, her wrists tied with old telephone cords. Her skull had been fractured, her fingernails broken. She had tried to claw her way out, but she was buried beneath floorboards, hidden from view, unknown to the world. 5 years passed. Then one day in 2018, the stench of decay drew a young couple to the window of room 309. What they saw next, neither of them ever forgot. Bones, fingers intertwined, a pelvis, a thigh bone. Eliza was found whole at last, but her soul, some say, was still trapped in the room. That same year, a fire broke out in the middle of the night. Firefighters raced to the derelict building. Flames roared from every window. Some said it looked like a funeral pyre. As the building burned to the ground, one resident told the press, "It's probably just a relief for her. Now her body is finally resting." But not quite. After the motel burned to the ground, human remains were found in the rubble. But forensic analysis revealed only one of the bones belonged to Eliza, the others unidentified. Where did they come from? Why were they buried there? The only answers seemed to lie in the minds of 3 men. It's 3 names, Derek, Tyler, and Sean, who had checked into room 309 with her the night she disappeared. But they weren't strangers to Eliza. They were customers at the diner where she worked. Regulars who flirted, left large tips, and sometimes followed her home. She had filed a complaint once, but nothing came of it. All 3 men knew her limits. All 3 men knew her weaknesses. All 3 men had reasons to want her gone. The janitor who once worked at the Red Pine anonymously tipped the police. He remembered their car, remembered their laughter echoing through the walls. But after that night, they vanished. No one saw them in town again until 2019, when Sean was found dead in his garage, neck snapped, no sign of forced entry. A year later, Tyler was discovered in a motel 600 miles away. Eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a scream. The coroner ruled it a heart attack, but the fear on his face was unforgettable. Only one man remained, Derek. He had changed his name, moved states. He started a new life. But something followed him. Started hearing her voice at night, soft at first, then louder. Whispers turned to screams. He began seeing her face in mirrors and reflections, standing in doorways waiting. One night, Derek called his lawyer, confessed everything in a recorded voicemail, intending to turn himself in. But he never made it. His body was found at an abandoned construction site, his heart carved out. But no blood at the scene, and next to him a photograph of Eliza. Was she avenging herself? Or was something else at work here? Rumors spread fast. Urban explorers returned to the Red Pine Lodge, drawn by curiosity and online dares. But every person who entered room 39 claimed to experience the same things. A woman's weeping echoing through the walls, cold air chilling to the bone even in summer, and the feeling of hands grabbing your ankles, though no one is there. One man said he woke up in his car outside the motel, even though he swore he never fell asleep. He had scratches across his back, forming one word: justice. Now locals call it the Room of Retribution. Was this a place of torture or a tomb? What happened to Eliza Moore is unknown. Some say her spirit won't rest until the motel is burned to the ground. But even then, would that be enough? You might think ghosts aren't real, that it's just fear and imagination. But if you ever find yourself near Pittsburgh and see a rusting old building with broken windows and a door marked 309, keep walking. Don't look inside, because Eliza might still be waiting for someone like you. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about pain, silence, and the screams of victims no one hears. Let this be a reminder. Evil doesn't always wear horns. Sometimes it wears a smile. Sleep tight, and if you hear knocking tonight, don't answer. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this scary story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Also check out these other terrifying tales.